Well, hi everyone, it's Marcus, and I am absolutely thrilled today because I have got in the hot seat with me via Zoom the incredible Steve Williams from the group Wawa Knee. Hey Steve, how are you?
Hi, Marcus. Thank you for having me, man, and thanks for those kind words. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh my God, we have got a lot to cover because I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm not going to hold back. I was a massive fan in the 80s. I've got something to tell you. I remember my first pay packet. My biggest love is music. I remember my first pay packet that I ever got when I started working. I went straight to the record store and bought two albums. The first one I grabbed off the rack was Wham's I'm Your Man. Second one I grabbed off the rack was Stimulation by Wawani.
Oh man, that's
that
so
very
cool.
clearly.
That
My
is so cool.
my parents hated George Michael and Wawani by the end of that evening. I promise you.
That is fantastic.
Do you remember that time?
I
1986.
do. I certainly do. Look, we had things took off so quickly for us. Do you remember the Rundle Mall riot?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, like peak Wawani. We were told like 200 kids were going to come, and there was 5,000 kids there, and the record store, I can't remember what it was called, but it got destroyed, and the cops had to get us out of there. Pretty hilarious looking back at it. I mean,
do you find, I mean, no one's obviously an overnight sensation, no one ever sees the work that goes into, an overnight sensation as such, but obviously Stimulation went to #2 straight away. Actually, while we're on that, do you remember who was #1? Who stopped you from getting to #1?
I'm pretty sure it was Samantha Fox.
Bloody Samantha Fox. Oh, yeah. Touch me. I want to feel your body.
Hey, what can you do?
You
know what happened with Wawa Need To is to get to #1, as you probably know, you have to be regionally like peaking at the same time, right? So the problem Wawa had a little bit was that like certain territory or certain states were kind of hesitant to embrace us. Like, so Queensland, for instance, we couldn't get any airplay.
Yeah.
So we were like sort of top of all the other states' charts, but Queensland was lagging behind. Eventually, they did sort of play it, and it caught up, and it did, I think, get pretty probably #1 in Queensland, but it was a little bit behind, so that held it back. Sort of thing. But, hey, it was all good, man. It was in the chart for so long.
Oh my God,
we were sick of it. We were so sick of it by then. So I remember Paul and I saying, when is this song going to die? This is like, because we wanted to get on with more stuff, you know what I mean? It was like.
From what I've read, I believe it was in the charts for 17 weeks, which was back then, incredible.
Yeah. It was the second biggest selling Australian single that year after You're the Voice.
Yeah, mental.
Yeah.
Do you remember going from, obviously, essentially starting off to, becoming a bloody sensation around Australia? Do you remember what that time was like for you?
Yeah, look, what happened was we started off with, we could only get a gig in a place called the Mansa Room, which you probably know of. It was a nightclub in King's Cross. So yeah. They used to have gigs where they'd have like 4 or 5 bands on. So we got a couple of those, and it happened pretty much straight away. I guess we were doing something kind of different, and the material was really poppy. So within a couple of gigs, we had like a couple of hundred people following us. So then we got another gig across the road in this hotel called the Piccadilly Hotel, and then we were probably pulling 400 or 500 people. Then Stimulation hit the charts and stuff, and we were touring nationally then, just pretty much straight away, doing kind of big shows. And then next thing we were overseas touring. It was honestly, Marcus, it was so quick that you literally didn't have time to really take it in, So within a period of maybe 6 months, we went from we couldn't get a gig to we were doing overseas gigs, So it was crazy, yeah.
Your follow-up single was I Could Make You Love Me, which went to #10. And again, based on my research that I've done, you guys were the first guys to have 2 consecutive top 10 hits in Australia. That was good.
Yeah, we were the first band to have 2 top 10 singles at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
So, what happened was we like, as I said, we were really waiting for Stimulation to die because we were keen to, get the next song out. We were kind of sick of it, right? So I think Stimulation dropped to like maybe 4 or 5, so we thought, cool, we can get I Could Make You Love Me out, which to us kind of represented the band a little more. It was more like the live band. So, we released I Could Make You Love Me, and it went into the charts, pretty much immediately. But much to our annoyance, Stimulation went back up. We were like, what the hell? Like, suddenly Stimulation was back at like number 3 or something, and then I Could Make You Love Me, I think it got top 5. But yeah, we were like, it was like a curse almost, and I guess any band that has a really big hit with their first single, it was like Cherry Pie, by Warrant.
Yeah.
It almost becomes a curse because what do you do? Like, how do you follow that up? And we were quite lucky in that we had like numerous hits, but Stimulation was our biggest hit. So it was kind of, I hate to say it, but it was downhill all the way.
It's funny though, because I remember the time I was a massive fan of those two big hits, but on reflection, years later, only actually even this week, listening to the albums, I really resonate with Sugar Free. I think Sugar Free is such a strong song.
Look, Sugar Free was the one that did stuff internationally. It was top 40 in the US, and it was a hit in numerous countries. I think Sugar Free didn't do as well here as I Could Make You Love Me, but I think it's a better remembered song.
Yeah, top. And when you were in America, you did really well. I mean, you were on, some of the iconic bloody shows, whether it be radio, TV. You were on Casey Kasem's Top 40. I used to listen to that religiously on a Sunday evening. But Dick Clark as well. I mean, that's major.
Yeah, we did Solid Gold. We did Top of the Pops. We were in America for quite a few months. We did some live gigs there, but we did a lot of TV. Solid Gold was the real trip because we were there with all these glamorous, beautiful Hollywood people, and we're like, what the hell? We were like fish out of water, But yeah, it was great. I mean, what a cool experience. We played live on the Arsenio Hall show, on the Tonight Show, and it was kind of a little bit nerve-wracking because they kept saying, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was like, the show goes out to like 100 million people or something. We were like, crikey, like, this is pretty scary. But, having said that, once we started playing, it was literally like doing any other gig. It's funny how the sort of power of being in a group, I guess, you just do your thing and then it's all, it was relatively easy,
Obviously your mate Paul Gray, we lost him in 2018. Like best buddies at school. How did you guys get together to create?
Look, we didn't actually know each other at all. Paul put an ad in the paper in like 85. What had happened is I'd been playing in like rock bands, and I was doing, because I'd been playing guitar since I was a kid, and I'd been in bands since I was 15. But they were always kind of guitar-driven bands because it was the 70s, and I love that, and I still love those sort of bands, like Zeppelin and stuff. But as soon as I heard synthesizers, I was like when I heard Roxy Music Virginia playing, that bit in the middle with the keyboard that Brian Eno does that. No, I was like, as soon as I heard that when I was a kid, I was like, man, what is that? What is that sound? It just completely spoke to me. So I always loved keyboards, and I remember getting into an argument with when I was about 21 or 22, I was living with some of my mates in Sydney, and I got into an argument with them because I said, controversially, that Wham were better than Gary Moore. and my flatmate said to me, man, like, you should know better, you can play. And I'm like, look, man, because I've always loved pop songs. And the fact that it was like poppy and keyboard driven, I still dug that, man, So Paul had an ad in the paper saying synth player 6 guitarist. So I rang him up. We spoke on the phone. We didn't actually meet for about 6 months. He would send me a cassette tape. We both had little Porter Studio setups at home. He would send me the cassette tape. I would put my stuff on it, mail him back the cassette. And this went on for about 6 months before we met. And we ended up with 4 songs on a tape. And that was Stimulation, Sugar Free, I Can Make You Love Me, and a song called Man Child. So we had, 3 of the singles on that initial tape. And off we went. Then he came over to my flat and just to sort of check each other out. And we immediately sort of clicked. We were very different people, but we actually really got each other. So, you know, it was really easy, and I don't know, it just sort of happened.
It worked.
It
Mm.
worked, yeah. You know, and Paul and I almost, we never, like, people have this, think people have a sort of misconception that Wawani was a really contrived thing. It wasn't at all. We just made some recordings, and they reflected kind of what we were into at the time. You know, I mean, we were both really into Thomas Dolby. I really loved that Frankie Goes to Hollywood album, Pleasure Dome. To me, that was like completely mind blowing, the whole recording of it. Listen to that in headphones today, and it stands up, man. It's incredible, you know. And so, you know, but we're also like, Paul was a major Prince fan. You know, so we just kind of did what we felt, and that was natural, and it just happened to work, you know.
Australian artists at the time, back in the 80s when you guys were kicking butt, who was someone that you really looked up to? Who was someone that you guys admired or got inspired by?
You know, I hate to say this, but neither of us were really into Australian bands.
Yep.
We were really into, like, as I said, bands like Frankie, Thomas Dolby, we were both really into, Duran Duran. Out of the Australian bands that we both like, Real Life was a band that we both liked, and I'm friends with David now, David Sterry, and I played with them. You know, so they were one of the bands. The Models I really liked, you know, but we kind of didn't have our sights set on this market. We were just doing what we thought was right, and it happened to sort of align with the thing that was more international, I guess. It wasn't really a conscious thing. It was just what we did.
And so you had 3 banging albums. Is there a song on any of those albums that you in your heart personally was like, oh, you know what, I really wish we'd put that out as a single?
There's a song on the second, on Blush, that I think should have been a single, called One Day. It's a really superb track, and I'm doing that. You know, we never played it live. It was one of those songs, you know, sometimes you just, I don't know, you just overlook things. But yeah, I think One Day, to me now, that stands up as like a more classic sort of track. It's a little bit timeless.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that would probably be the one.
Now, speaking of live, of course, the reason why, or one of the reasons why, aside from the fact I wanted to get to know Wawani and Steve Williams, obviously one of the other reasons we're chatting today is because you are coming to Adelaide and playing at the Arca next Saturday night, which I believe is Saturday the 17th of November. Would I be right?
I think it's Friday the 17th, I think, Mark.
Friday the 17th.
Yes, it's Friday the 17th. Yep.
Steve is a blur at the moment, seriously.
I'm very easily confused, so you're lucky I got that right. Yeah.
We're going to be buying Christmas presents before you know it. The Arca, which has just been redone, done a bit of a facelift on the old place, and it's stunning by all accounts. So I get to actually experience the Arca for the first time since the renos, with your show, which of course is called Steve Williams Plays Wawani. Tell us about the show. What can we expect?
Look, we're doing all the bangers. What I've really done is kept the show. It's pretty much all dance music. Yeah, there's one ballad that I'm doing, but other than that, it's all pretty up there, high energy stuff. Pretty much all segued together, so there's not really a lot of time to just, you know, we're just playing non-stop music.
And tell us about the bands, because obviously on lead vocals, we've got Taxi Rides. I've just forgotten the guy's name.
Tim Watson from Taxi Ride. Yeah, he's a fabulous singer. He's a good friend of mine. Like, I was doing some gigs in Melbourne with him. Really liked him. He's a really easy guy to work with. There's like no ego at all, you know. So and a great voice. So you know, and funnily enough, he told me that prior to Taxi Ride, they had a band that was like doing sort of white boy funk, and they used to cover a few Wawani songs.
Awesome.
So, hey, like, that's great. You already know the material, you know. So yeah, and I've got a really great band. I've got you know, a bunch of younger guys in the band, but I thought it'd be nice to get some new blood rather than, you know, so sometimes when you go see bands, it's the same, like, sort of older guys that, oh, you were in that band and you're also in, you know. So I kind of wanted to avoid that a little bit, so have some young, fresh kind of blood in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really great. We've got a good band, and they're all really super easy to work with. They're all super keen. I guess that's the good thing about, like, having done something like it's easy to get people enthused, you know. So it's not like, hey, I've got this new thing, I'm trying to get it happening. That's kind of difficult, you know. Whereas it was easy to get people on board.
And so do you still hang out and see some of the original band members from Wawani, the old days?
Look, I don't. Look, sadly, Paul obviously passed away, and the keyboard player Phil also passed away many years ago. Chris Sweeney, the drummer, lives in Thailand now, so I haven't seen him. You know, he actually went there, I think, in the early 90s. Incredible musician. He's been living there ever since. He's actually an American citizen. So he hasn't come back. And Mark Gray, I haven't spoken to literally since Paul passed away at the funeral.
Of course, that was Mark. That was Paul's brother, wasn't it?
Paul's brother. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. So are you looking forward to getting to Adelaide?
Absolutely. No, I can't wait. It's like this is going to be. These shows have been quite amazing in a way because they're almost like a school reunion.
Yeah.
Like when I look out, there are all these. I remember you from the gigs, you know, like, and obviously we're all quite a bit older, but you know how you never forget a face, right? So yeah, it's just been so good.
Fantastic. And do you still get a kick out of playing the Wawani songs?
Absolutely. Look, Marcus, I hadn't played these songs for 5 years. Like before Paul died, we'd been doing a lot of you know, those sort of heritage shows where they have like 10. You know, bands like Dragon and My Sex and that. So we were doing those sort of quite big concerts with those sort of shows.
Yep.
The last one we did was for Human League. And that was actually the last time I spoke to Paul before he died. So, you know, honestly, when he died, I actually thought I probably would never play these songs again because I just couldn't really envisage doing it without him. But then here we are, you know, 5 years later, and I just felt now the time was sort of right to do it. It's been, you know, a long enough time for him to have been to have passed away, to kind of revisit the material. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. It's such a thrill. The first few rehearsals, I was actually like tearing up. It was quite emotional because, you know, the power of music. It's evocative. The way it can take you back to what you were doing, and I don't know, man. It speaks louder than words, I guess.
Yeah. Steve, what an absolute pleasure. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you and hearing some of these stories, the old days and the new days, of course. I am going to be coming to your gig Friday the 17th at the Aqaba. You guys watching can get the tickets through the link in the post above or below, however it's working. Steve Williams, what an absolute pleasure. And I will definitely see you in just over a week and a half.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcus. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to meeting you in person.